The next item is public hearing. I'll go to Clerk Hoover to read.
Public hearing on ordinance number 5506 to amend Bremerton Municipal Code Title 20 to achieve permit procedures compliant with Senate Bill 5290. Presenter is Planning Manager Garrett Jackson.
All right, thank you and happy holidays. We are here to talk about some potential permit changes for zoning code amendments brought up to you by the state of Washington. The Planning Commission's recommendation, they unanimously recommend the adoption of the proposed zoning code amendments and that council should hold an open record public hearing, consider testimony, and adopt the proposed changes. The process that got us here tonight is up on the screen. The Planning Commission held a public workshop in October. It was followed by a review from the Department of Commerce of the proposed ordinance and SEPA review. And then the Planning Commission had a public hearing in November. Last week, we had the City Council study session. It brings us here tonight to the City Council public hearing. The Planning Commission's recommendation, including comments received, are in the findings and conclusions of your packet. So Washington State regulates how jurisdictions do permitting through the Local Project Review Act. And that was amended by SB 5290 in 2023. And that revised that state statute to require increased permit efficiencies. And that takes effect in January 1, 2025. Other guidance from the state includes the Growth Management Act, where processing permit applications in a timely and fair manner is included as one of the 15 goals of the Growth Management Act. We also have some guidance from our regional planning partners at Puget Sound Regional Council. Their guiding document, Vision 2050, notes that local governments can stimulate development through streamlined development review and permitting processes. And our own comprehensive plan in the housing element and economic development element both call for efficient permit review in the city. So our proposed changes are best characterized through three general categories. One, through permit process updates. Two, increased permit efficiencies. And three, non-5290 requirements through additional measures and housekeeping. So first of all, permit process updates. Currently, the city has 120 days to issue a decision on a permit. The state, through 5290, changed that to the following, where you would have 65 days for a project permit that does not require public notice, 100 days for projects that do require public notice, and 170 days for permits that both require public notice and a public hearing. Updated permit timelines would not apply to building permits, fire department permits, or permits where coordination on cultural resources are required. Cultural resources, we coordinate with the Suquamish tribe for specific properties that may contain culturally significant items. In increased permit efficiencies, you can see here up on the screen a matrix of options. The state requires that we have permit refunds if we don't meet those established timelines. And as an alternative to refunds, you are allowed to select 3 of these 10 options available that provide increased permit efficiencies instead of that refund option. The 3 options that we'll go over here tonight are bolded. Those are recommended by the Planning Commission. The remaining items are described in the packet. So, optional pre-submittal application conference. Currently, pre-submittal application conferences are required for certain permit types. These informal meetings enable applicants to give feedback on preliminary project proposals from planning, building, public works, the fire marshal, and others. The cost for this permit is $100, which makes it an excellent incentive for early coordination with the city. To meet this criteria, the permit would transition from being required to being optional under the proposed code. So required public hearings is another increased permit efficiencies item, where if a public hearing is not required by state statute, then that would then be transitioned to not having a public hearing in the proposed code. Affected code sections are listed here in this matrix on the screen and also described more fully in the packet. While these permit types are proposed to transition from a public hearing, they would still maintain a public comment period. Okay, outright permitted housing uses. So another efficiency measure is to transition housing uses that are currently required a conditional use permit to being an outright permitted use. The housing types that apply are here on the screen: cottage housing, group residential class 1, senior housing complex, and manufactured home park. These would retain their criteria of approval, but transition from a conditional use permit to an outright permitted use. We have some examples of what those housing types might look like in the city today. A manufactured home park, there's an example here from Price Road out by Kitsap Lake. Senior housing complex, there is an example called the Vintage out on Sheridan. Group residential class 1, there's a development called the Arbor on 9th Street that's south of Kitsap Way. And cottage housing, there is an example that predates our code on Snyder Avenue of cottage housing. So additional measures and housekeeping. The design review board. So the design review board process relates to preliminary project design within the downtown subarea plan and Harrison Heights subarea plan. Both proposed alterations would transition the building permit from a type 2 to a type 1 permit. A type 2 requires public comment and a potential appeal. A type 1 permit does not. The current design review board process includes a conceptual design conference that is a required public meeting and a response conference, which is also a public meeting. For a development to get from the conceptual design response public meeting, response public comment meeting, and then the building permit leaves a lot of uncertainty for that development to actually come to fruition that late in the process. Thus, we're proposing it is transitioned to a type 1. Currently, okay, so applicant response time. Currently, our code allows an applicant 90 days to provide any response to a permit. So we send a review letter requesting additional materials. The applicant then has 90 days to respond back to us. With these shortened timelines, it lessens the amount of time that staff has to get a decision issued. So for that reason, we're proposing to shorten that from 90 days to 60 days, where applicants must provide a response to the city. Additionally, on the third request for information from the city, if we ask for the same thing 3 times from an applicant that's not provided, the city would then be enabled to lapse that permit. Once again, trying to meet those shorter timelines and having the applicant respond in a more timely manner. Additional measures in housekeeping, informational signage. So in past city council meetings, the council has wanted staff and the planning commission to consider increased signage for increased public awareness for upcoming development. That sometimes there has been complaints that the first time someone knows that a parcel is going to be developed is when you see a bulldozer outside. And so with that in mind, we have this current proposal where informational signage would be posted on a site from the time that an application is deemed complete till the time that it gets final occupancy. It would be a staff-provided sign and provide details on the proposed development and project contact information. At the study session last week, the City Council requested that staff coordinate with the City Attorney on potentially revising this code, making some tweaks, and we did that. And the revised code is in the ordinance that's in the packet today, and an email sent to Council describing what those changes are in the packet as well. Those changes would provide more public notice for commercial projects, and just generally streamline that language, which was a little bit duplicative. And once again, the Planning Commission recommendation, they unanimously recommend adoption of the proposed zoning code amendments, and that council should hold an open record public hearing, consider testimony, and adopt the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Jackson. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your very awesome llama sweater representing. Okay, so we are going to open up the public hearing, and the purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comment. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Am I limited to 3 minutes?
3 minutes, yes. Oh, and Mr. Camacho, hold on just a moment. What I'd like to do during this public comment is, if we could, I'd love for the public to ask a series of questions, and if there is going to be a reply, and there's like, let's say 1 minute left, I'd like to pause the clock and offer that back to the public when they comment. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Camacho, you're up.
Removing the need for a hearing and comment to truncate the building permit phase of the arc of the permitting of any project. In my personal experience as a resident of Evergreen Pointe, Evergreen Park community, where I learned that the Evergreen Pointe project was rigged for Southwest Group, that's where I discovered it. Our community discovered that project was rigged during the building permit phase of it. Because previously, the site plan phase of it, no one caught on. The city stripped all mention of the Shoreline Management Act from that part of it. They violated the idea of segmentation. Segmentation is prohibited by like only 50 years of jurisprudence, Merkel versus Port of Brownsville. We asked them what changed between how you treated Goldberg and how you're treating Larson. And they didn't tell us. They basically just continue to deceive us. To this day, they are doing it. So this idea of making the building permit basically a phase where people across the street, residents of projects, we are silenced. We were silenced. They actually did get away with it. We didn't make the deadline. I went to the DCD office to ask for guidance and papers, and I was misled. To this day, after a year of Public Record Act requests, I still do not have a full application that was submitted by Southwest Group. I have a first page and a last page. The last page has a signature. It's like a sandwich with nothing in between. A year. So the city is willing to risk Public Record Act penalties, now accruing at over $30,000. They're willing to risk that. They're willing to be found guilty of felony misappropriation because all the benefits go to Southwest Group, not the public good, not the general welfare. So this idea of the building permit being like a nothing burger, let's just let it go on, huge mistake. That is an opportunity for the people in the know, the people who live right at the site.
30 seconds.
To give the city information. Big mistake.
Thank you. Okay. And we have online Ian Harkins.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ian Harkins, here on behalf of Kitsap Building Association. Again, we strongly support the city's ordinance addressing the new permit timeline requirements as required by Senate Bill 5290. Again, we further encourage the city to consider additional options for ensuring timely and efficient review of permits, knowing that we are in a dire housing crisis where every single day a permit sits in review has a great effect on the end cost to the end user. So thank you very much to staff and to the council. We strongly support the ordinance as written.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on this item for public hearing? Okay. I am going to close public hearing and move to go to council for a motion.
Move to pass, excuse me, ordinance number 5506 as recommended by the Planning Commission to amend Bremerton Municipal Code Title 20 to achieve permit procedures compliant with SB 5290.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Younger, would you like to comment first?
Well, thank you. We had a pretty in-depth discussion at last week's study session and a presentation similar to what you saw tonight by Mr. Jackson. So just keep in mind, for the public, a state law was passed and basically said you need to expedite, as the previous speaker just discussed, procedures so we can get more housing on the rolls quicker, faster, implement these designs.
Expediting cannot be written.
I'm sorry, you don't have the floor, sir?
So, and to bring up the point the gentleman just discussed, it was actually brought up during our study session about a posting of a sign, which this provision has for certain projects, but actually we brought up perhaps how about for any permit action, put up a sign. And then we were faced with all the repercussions that would bring and how that would slow down the process for people to be able to build their projects, to build their individual single-family homes, to make additions, to add porches, et cetera, and really slow the process down. I don't think we are finished yet with addressing that, but nevertheless, we have this state law in front of us that says you shall do 3 of the following. And so we went through it and we agreed, hopefully we'll agree with the Planning Commission tonight, with what the Planning Commission and the administration is recommending that we implement tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, you cannot speak. It's not your, thank you.
I've been silenced enough.
Councilor Goodnow?
Yeah, I was going to maybe ask for a clarification, but what I feel like what we're doing with the changing from a type 2 to a type 1, we're also moving the public comment up earlier in the process. Is that what is that? We're not getting rid of public comment, we're getting rid of it at one place and moving it to design review. Was that what you stated?
So that's the existing code. The existing process is public meeting and public comment with the design review process. It's just this last leg of the building permit that's would transition from a type 2 to a type 1. But currently, if a project requires design review, then you'd get 2, there's a conceptual response conference and then a response conference after that. So, and with the proposed permitting changes for additional signage for informational signage, that type of project would be assigned, would receive a sign on the property much more early and throughout the permitting process.
So would it be your opinion that these changes will also help with allowing citizens to comment on projects?
The informational signage is for awareness, and the continued design review board process for the 2 design review board meetings would provide a public forum for comment.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Councilors, Councilor Coughlin.
Thank you, Council President. Just wanted to quickly thank Councilmember Mockler for her leadership on adding a layer of transparency to what's going on in our city, and to Council as a whole dedication to exploring and requiring these reasonable measures to make sure folks can know what's going on and have ability to comment, as we know that this is incredibly important. And I do want to thank our partners in the state for taking action to try and remove some inefficiencies in the permitting process. The number one cause of homelessness is a lack of housing and a lack of affordable housing. And so we are in a housing crisis. And so the ability to build that housing in a reasonable and informed manner is so critical. So thanks again to our state partners, to this council.
Thank you. Councilor Mockler or Councilor Fry? Vice President Mockler, I should say. Vice President Mockler.
Why, yes, I would like to comment. So the RCW 36.70A.020 is asking us to process permit applications in a timely and fair manner. And I think that this should be fair to developers and fair to people who live here, both those things. Permit efficiencies, moving forward to get more housing. We are not in a financial place where we can do the simple and obvious and easiest thing, which is to hire an additional permit technician. But we could make changes to the efficiency of our communication with permit applicants, which I've heard a lot of anecdotal grumbling about. For example, Mr. Jackson last week told us that they will send out a letter with 3 requests for information, and they will get back a response to only the first. This is something that a communications manager would point out, which is that people do not read past the first paragraph unless you make them. The first paragraph of such a letter, in my opinion, should state, there are 3 questions here. If you do not answer all 3, your permit will be delayed. That would be an improvement in efficiency. I guess I would like to push back against the pretty common perception that the people who live here would jump up and down if someone were building a porch. The type 1 permits, which are the most common type of permits, cover replacing a water heater, replacing a window, something that in City of Paulsbo is considered of no or limited public interest. They put in type 2 anything that is of public interest. And I think that the public interest should be of interest to our Department of Community Development as well. It is the people who live near that site who can say something like, you may not know this, but this floods every 5 years when these circumstances happen. Or you may not know this, but we have seen eagles roosting here every year for the past 5 years. This is information that only the community who live here can give to the Department of Community Development, and it's valuable information. The people who live here have value. So I would really hope that we could seek other ways of meeting what I agree with every other counselor, and I think everyone in this room, that we have got to find more housing. I just don't think we should do it by keeping the people of Bremerton in the dark. Every homeowner I know has at least 5 projects on the boil. Do you own a home? Do you have 5 projects that you're planning on? If someone were going to be putting in 5 units next door to you, might you want to go out and buy some trees and create a screening fence? Isn't that information you would like to have? Yeah, no, Eric's making, Councilor Younger is making a good point, which is, yes, they will have the information with the proposed information-only signage, but they will not be able to comment on it. And this is being done solely because the people of Bremerton are viewed as, you know, people who don't want development. Almost everybody I run across is like, we want the development. We would like to work with DCD. And I'm going to close, Council President, by saying that trust in government just gets lower and lower with every passing day. It's not often that the first signal you get that someone's building near you is a bulldozer, but it often will be something that dramatic. Something as wonderful as the building that was purchased by Bremerton Housing Authority up on Wheaton Way. Everybody was asking me, what is that building? I don't know. A simple sign would have let people find out what was going on there, and they could have actually, and Councilor Fry has brought this up many times, that they could have actually been proud of their city. Yes, we're really happy that this is happening. So I would really like to urge once more that we adopt the language of City of Paulsbo, coming into the close and stretch, which calls for all type 1 permits being only for activities that are of limited or no public interest, and that if projects are of public interest, that they become type 2 permits and require the regular notice of proposed land use action signs that you will occasionally see around Bremerton for larger projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fry.
I feel very thankful to DCD for working with the state legislation and working with our planning commission on establishing, what alternatives we're going to select. And I commend the planning commission. I don't give a shout out enough to our commissions and our committees, and especially our commissions that are full of volunteers who give a lot of hours. So when I hear that something's unanimously going through our planning commission, I pay attention to that. I respect that commission greatly, including its new member. But then I'm one, as you all know, that doesn't believe that developers are an F word. And I don't think that all of Bremerton believes that, but I do think around the country there's a lot of stereotypes about developers that we have to keep in mind as we work with them and their expertise. Without them, we don't get the housing, and that is the leading cause of homelessness. So thank you to our own department, Garrett, Andrea, thank Director Spencer, thank you very much for all the work you've invested in this with council and the Planning Commission. Good job.
Thank you. And then my final comments, I'm assuming we all have had our turn on this very in-depth study session item, very in-depth discussion there. We're going to be, I believe it's in February, we're going to come back to discussing signage. I believe I have it on the agenda for late January, early February. I can't remember exactly right now, but we'll have a discussion item at one of our study sessions for that to hammer out the details. We'll just double check. Any other further comments? Yeah, Vice President Mockler.
We are sending something back to the Planning Commission that they've already said they had a difficulty with the informational signage, so we're asking them if they would like more detailed signage. So I'm looking forward to discussing this after the Planning Commission has had an opportunity to review it I think you're right, in February. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's vote.
Councilmember Coughlin?
Yes.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Goodnow?
Yes.
Mochler?
No.
Younger?
Yes.
Fry?
Yes.
Chamberlain?
Yes.
Motion carries, 5 yeses, 1 no.